Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Monday night F1 pit stop. That's right, every week on a Monday night from 7:15, normally from 7:15, but this week 7:22. I do apologise. The starting flag was late in being. See, this is when I show myself up to be a rookie still on the grid because I'm struggling with the terminology. So I apologise for any aficionados. I know Steve is probably is at the back of the grid, shaking his head in absolute disgust. These new drivers, he's saying. But still, we're here Monday night. Lots to discuss. A couple of weeks ago, I said in a video, and I actually titled it, Max Verstappen wins the title. That's no longer the case, my friends. We've suddenly got a wide open title race. Will Hamilton prove his worth and win it? I'd love to know your thoughts. You can get involved in the show. Just ask for a link or have your say, as Matt Stannard has done with it. It's the double waved yellows, Gov. It absolutely is. Well, look, let's get somebody leading the pack that knows what they're doing. You have to talk me through this double yellow stuff. I don't quite understand it. What's that mean?
Double wave yellows. There's a hazard on track. Quite bad. Slow down. I think.
Yeah. He's got that right about me. Definitely a hazard. Welcome, Steve. How has your week been?
It has been good. It has been just steady, boring, normal week, really.
Listen, I said at the start of the video, it was an apology because I did say a couple of weeks ago, Max Verstappen has won the title. If you look back in the archives, there is an F1 Monday night show titled "Verstappen Wins Title?" ?
Yeah, I thought that was brave.
Suddenly, it's wide open again, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's never been a foregone conclusion that it would be Max's title, but
I think after one race though, it was almost it looked well. It doesn't look. It is going to be a mammoth overhaul if Hamilton does complete the job, particularly after last weekend's races where he was push back in terms of different rules, etc. But is this, before I bring Neil in, is this what the sport desperately needed? Did it need this type of title challenge to catch fire? Because I've been reading that the sport's been growing in popularity because of things like Netflix's Drive to Survive.
Mm-hmm.
So did it need this type of title challenge to make those new fans stick around?
Yeah, absolutely. Because new fans, people who might have been watching Drive to Survive a couple of years ago, they're treated to all this on-track action in the footage, but then when they watch it, the actual live race is actually a bit more dull because you've got two Mercedes that scamper away into the distance. Whereas this year, if you're watching this season as a neutral, you're in for a treat. Because if you're not a Hamilton or a Verstappen fan, you don't care who wins the title. You're just enjoying the fight. It's amazing. It is so good. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
If he completes the task on that, there will be a whole new wave of Hamilton fans, and I'm going to probably have to count myself in that one because what I've seen as a new fan, as a neutral, these last couple of weeks has been nothing short than absolutely phenomenal driving from one of the best. Now, I can't say he's the greatest of all time. I do say it every week, sort of to dig at you a little bit because I know I can see it in your eyes. He says it again. But honestly, those new fans will be drawn to Hamilton if he can do this overhaul because it is a big overhaul, isn't it? He has been behind in a fair way.
Yeah, I think around Zandvoort, when Max Verstappen was at the peak and Red Bull were in control, it looked like that Max would cruise to an easy win because Mercedes just didn't seem to have an answer. And then they wake up, they stick a new engine in the back of Hamilton's car. He's got more power. He uses his driving to the best of his abilities, and suddenly he's only 8 points behind going into the last two races.
Crazy.
Insane.
Absolutely crazy. Well, on that one, let's bring in somebody who's going to shift the gears a little bit, move us into the fast lane. Hold on to your seatbelts. You're going to need them.
Wake up to the, wow. Wake up to the money, turn me right on. You look like you got dressed with no lights on. A Superman that spin like a cyclone. Fit check, spin like a cyclone. Wake up to the money, turn me right on.
Yeah, but we're crap. We're not going to dominate any team.
Well, it's not been a domination this season, Neil, but it is a wide open title race. Is it what the sport needed? Same question to you, my man.
Certainly is, and we love it.
We do. We really do. And in your intro, it says spin like a cyclone. He's had to drive like a cyclone. Because do you agree with my sentiments that if he does complete the challenge, there'll be a whole new wave of Hamilton fans based off the fact that what they're seeing is incredible driving?
Most definitely. What we're seeing is what I believe he's capable of, but he hasn't really ever been tested enough of late to really have to push to these new levels. I think when Rosberg was against him was the last time he had to really dig this deep, and it was only because of failures with the car that hampered his progress on that one.
Do you think, Neil, he needed this? Do you think he needs this fire underneath him to be lit because he'd got a little bit too comfortable?
It's the same as any great champion that for over the years, you need something to happen to drive you on, to give you that spark, to show what you can do. And this has woken him up, and it's good to see.
Okay, Steve. Should we start with because I know we've got a WhatsApp group for those that don't know. Before we get into the sort of the agenda, we've got a couple of comments coming in from Matt Stannard. We love the live comments. If you are watching live, just the same way Matt is, and I will now open it up to Facebook as well as Twitter. But if you are watching us live and you do want to leave a comment, then please do so. If you're watching this back on catch up, and I know many of you do, and I know many of you enjoyed our Wednesday show. Thank you for your WhatsApps on that. Leave a comment in the chat, and the guys will come back to you if they can. I know they certainly enjoy reading your feedback and your comments. That's that. It's a setup for the last race. Hamilton around the outside, Max defends, neither back off, and crash. Cue the war again. He says, Neil, what happened to Ricciardo in Qatar? What happened to Ricciardo in Qatar, Neil?
Did he turn up?
We're asking you, Mr. Positivity. Bring the heat, my man. What happened to Ricciardo? What happened to him?
He was slightly off the pace.
Slightly off the pace, and Steve,
but not as far off the pace as Leclerc was compared to Sainz.
Yeah, what's that all about? Crazy.
Do you want to build on that, Steve? Slightly off the pace, says Neil. Is that an understatement or three?
It was a shame, wasn't it? Because Ricciardo just seemed to hit his stride again after the summer break, and he's dropped off this weekend. Don't know why. But he was nowhere out in Q2, and Norris finished in a fine. Where was Norris? P6?
No. He would have been P4 or 5, depending on whether Perez got past him. But he felt something off with the car, and they pitted him just to make sure, as everyone else who went long pretty much had a punch or a failure, shall I say? And
would you say, Steve?
I think he only got a point or two in the end.
Would you say Ricciardo's got all the ability and then some as a driver? Do you rate the tools that he's got as a driver?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I still think he's one of the finest drivers on the grid.
I did.
No, I still do. I mean, you're going back a few years now, 2014, we saw him absolutely hand it to Sebastian Vettel when they were teammates for a year. Vettel was the defending world champion at the time. And Ricciardo come in, won a couple of races, Seb didn't. And Ricciardo finished third in the championship. He then fought very well against Max Verstappen at Red Bull. It took him a little bit of time to settle into Renault, and it's been the same at McLaren. But I still think he's the same driver. He's still got it.
So what is Neil? What holds him back? Is it his inconsistency? Is he like Hamilton at this moment in time? Does he need that fire underneath him? Did Vettel bring that fire? But what's causing Ricciardo to have this split opinion where Steve says, "Yeah, I still think he's a fantastic driver," and you're going, "I did."
Because, well, for me, it was as Steve's mentioned, he has shown glimpses of being one of the best on the grid at the moment, and since his move to McLaren and how much he just hates this pig of a car they've got that just needs a certain style that isn't suited to him, and it just makes him look like he's lost a little bit of his touch.
Yeah, and it does hurt him when Norris performs well, doesn't it? Obviously, it shows him up a little bit, and Norris himself has had a great year. By all standards. Matt Stannard, next season, guys, you'll have Russell there too, which is obviously very, very true. Should we do some maths for the title? Shall we look at that, Steve? I know Neil wanted to bring that to the party. What are
absolutely.
the maths for the title for those keeping track at home? What's needed? How do they get it?
I found it on Twitter earlier, so let me just have a quick
Good.
look see here.
Go
I
on, Neil.
hear they keep mentioning that if it's another 1-2 with Hamilton first and Max second, they'll be tied to the last race.
I think it's if one of them gets the fastest lap, they will go into Abu Dhabi
Yeah.
on equal points.
Hamilton has to get the fastest lap as well, doesn't he?
But as it stands,
go on.
Max can win the title in Saudi Arabia
He can.
if he finishes first with the fastest lap and Lewis Hamilton is 6th or lower.
Which is not going to happen.
It's unlikely, isn't it? He finishes first and Lewis is 7th or lower. That's obviously no fastest lap. Max finishes second with the fastest lap. Hamilton is 10th or lower. Or if Max finishes second or first and Hamilton doesn't score. So it could, in the way this season has been, it could happen, and it could end. The title race could end in Saudi Arabia. But it's highly unlikely because that Hamilton has been driving absolutely brilliantly this season, better than I can remember him driving for many, many years. And that Mercedes is bulletproof. There have been,
You've done it now.
Yeah,
I've jinxed it now. So Verstappen, 2021 champion, absolutely confirmed there. But that Mercedes has had, that Mercedes is an absolute bulletproof reliability. I can't think of it. I'm sure they've had problems, obviously, over the course of the year. But there's been, and apart from,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I've done it now. But the only DNF he's had this year was because of the clash with Verstappen in Monza. And he's been incredibly consistent. So, he's going to start at the back of the grid and he's going to spin out and crash out on the first lap now because I've jinxed it. So.
Do you think there's more chance, Neil, of Hamilton not finishing than finishing anything lower than 6th?
Something's seriously going to have to go wrong. But we've seen him pull over in the wrong place to do practice starts. We've seen the shenanigans with the waved yellows. Anything at this moment seems like it could happen.
If I was to put my money on it, I would say that, which I won't do. If I was to do that, I think it's more likely that Hamilton won't score at all because of a DNF than finishing 6th, 7th, or finishing outside of the points, because when that car is working properly, and because how reliable that car is and how quick he is and how good he's been this year, he's not going to be like Bottas was, languishing down in sort of 11th, 12th place. We saw it in Brazil, how many positions he can make up. I think it's more likely to DNF than he is to have a race in the lower half of the points.
I agree. What would happen if Hamilton won the race and Verstappen finished 3rd or 4th? What would be the permutation then? How would the points look then? Do we know? Because that's a situation that could happen.
Well, it would obviously mean that Hamilton would not be tied. He would actually be ahead.
He'd be the leader, wouldn't he? Yeah. Because there's 8 points between them now. You get 25 for first. You get 18 for second and 15 for third. So
So
Hamilton wins, that's 25 points.
So he could just be 3 ahead then, couldn't he?
Yeah. And even that is just insane.
But that would set it up lovely for the last race of the season, Neil.
Yep, certainly would. To be fair, I wouldn't want that. I think get the the extra point, even though I think that will be difficult because Red Bull have actually been really good this season with mopping up the quickest laps.
Mm-hmm. They were quite fortunate, weren't they? Yesterday they had Verstappen so far ahead of Fernando. They could just bring him in, whack some softs on, even though Mercedes weren't going to get the fastest lap anyway. Just to sort of cement it and then really go for it. And it was a blistering lap, that last lap from Verstappen. It was insanely good.
Yeah, Mercedes couldn't do it with Hamilton, could they? Because if he had pitted first, then Verstappen would have gone, right, well, I'm not going to pit then, and he would have won the race.
Yeah. And there's always a risk, isn't there? I mean, we've seen this year multiple teams make mistakes with pit stops. We had the same thing, Bottas back in Monaco. Legend has it, they're still trying to get that wheel off that car. We had the same thing with... was it Monza? They were both Red Bull and Mercedes were slow, weren't they? Because then they ended up clashing.
Yeah.
So we've seen mistakes in the pit lane this year. So at the end of the day, you're fighting for a title. You take your entire championship fight into the mechanics' hands when you come in for a pit stop. And if there's one thing that isn't inch perfect, then that could be the race gone. And Verstappen would have jumped on that.
Yeah,
That was
totally.
something that Mercedes seems to have improved on a little bit, because Hamilton never wanted to pit, did he? He wanted to one stop the whole time because he just didn't want to risk the pit crew taking the race from him.
And there's always a delay in there between them, the radio transmissions actually happening, and them being broadcast on TV, because you have to go through F1, whatever it is. But Hamilton saying, "Don't pit me yet, don't pit too early," and then about 20 seconds later, Mercedes going, "Box." So they've just gone, "No, come in anyway, sod it." So yeah, but it looks like they did the right thing by bringing him in, because if they'd have gone on a one-stop strategy, then they might not have made it.
It's going to be really exciting into the season. Where are we next? Are we in Saudi Arabia next?
Saudi Arabia next.
Saudi Arabia next.
We haven't been to this one before.
We haven't.
And I have no idea what it looks like either, because I didn't do my research.
As a track layout, looks pretty crap.
I was hearing, I think on 5 Live, it's a race that's going to suit the Mercedes more than the Red Bull, isn't it? Because this is a fast track, they say. Not as many sort of hairpins and tight corners. Is that right?
That's what I heard.
Yeah, there are a few sort of fast sweeping corners, almost sort of in the Magnus Beckett's complex at Silverstone. There's a bit that looks a bit like that. And
that's supposed to be a Mercedes.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a Mercedes track. But again, this year, tracks that should have been Mercedes have been Red Bull, and vice versa. I thought Brazil was going to be all Red Bull, and
Matt Stannard, Mercedes shot themselves in the foot, didn't they? Running longer than Pirelli said with Bottas and retiring him, otherwise could have tied for the fastest lap. Could that be key? Red Bull had Perez to assist with strategy. Could Bottas be key in the last 2 races from a strategy point? Something I asked, it's very similar to that, Matt. Great question. About 4 weeks ago of you, Steve. Well, we'll ask it again now, or Matt has. Can he be key in these last 2 races from a strategy point of view, Bottas?
They need to deploy him as best as they can.
He's a rookie.
There you go. He's he's a rookie from Danny Rick. I love that.
No, he's a rookie.
This was perfect for Mercedes, because they had Hamilton up in first place on the grid.
Banter.
Gasly and Alonso second and third. Fernando Alonso, by the way. I'm sure we'll get to him, but he's still got it. Bottas in 6th and Verstappen in 7th. Ideal for Mercedes, because even though Bottas is further back than they want, he's still got Verstappen behind him. He can keep Verstappen behind him, and it lasted about 2 meters. And then Verstappen, excellent launch. Bottas with a Bottas launch. Job done. See you later. I'm going to go chasing after Hamilton now. Almost got wiped out by Fernando, but there we go.
By the 5th lap, he was up where he should have been.
Yeah.
And Bottas was still down in 11th.
Bottas was just atrocious. And you can hear the frustration in Toto Wolff's voice when he came on the radio. He's like, "Oh, Bottas, get these cars." And you can hear the frustration because he's in a Mercedes. I mean, look what the other Mercedes is doing. And this one can't even pass car. And it's an easy circuit to pass on. We saw so many overtakes, DRS or not. And he just sat there until he got a puncture.
Poor Bottas.
Just typical. It was a Bottas being Bottas weekend. It wasn't a Bottas 2.0.
Well, it's just the rookie.
I might be considering getting off the Ricciardo train a smidge, but I am way off the Bottas train. That has departed a long time ago. It is terrible.
The Bottas boat
that's been scrapped. That's gone.
The Bottas boat and the Ricciardo rickshaw.
It's a bit harsh, but I'm bar the odd qualifying performance. I really don't see what he brings to the party.
Well, where is he next year? Is it Alfa
Romeo?
Alfa Romeo.
It could be exactly what he needs. We've seen it happen with Gasly. He's one of the drivers of the season now. He got demoted to Alpha Tauri from Red Bull. This could be just what he needs. But he's got Guan Yu Zhou alongside him next year, and if he gets beaten by Zhou, then
I think I'm going to ask
serious questions
in the summer. A series of questions. What's more likely? I think one of the questions I'm going to ask is what's more likely: Bottas to be with Mazepin every race, or to be with Leclerc? I think that's going to be a great question because I think we'll get some interesting answers, don't you? Because he's gone from the one end of the grid, but he's not performed in a top car, so it's going to be interesting. But somebody who always does perform, Mr. Thompson, we've mentioned his name, but let's have a little word about him. Is obviously Alonso. Great drive from Alonso this weekend.
7 years since his last podium. I mean, 2 years he was out of the sport, but he had that terrible Ferrari in 2014, dragged that onto a podium or two, and then got all from McLarens for years after that. Lucky to finish a race most of the time with that McLaren Honda. And yeah, he's back. He almost had a couple of podiums earlier this year, and I say he's back. He never left. You can't take the talent and the class out of Fernando Alonso. He is stick him in a Mercedes or a Red Bull. He will be at the sharp end of the grid, challenging for victories every race. Guarantee it. 40 years old or not.
You guarantee? Wow.
I would happily bet that Fernando, if he was alongside Lewis in a Mercedes or if he was in a Red Bull, he'd be challenging for a world championship for sure. Don't care about his age. I mean, to be fair, he's 40, Kimi is 42, and they're both proven that they've still got it. I mean, Kimi's obviously in a pretty slow car. Fernando's got the benefit of being in a pretty quick car, although rather inconsistent car, but he's still got it. He never lost it.
How did you see the race this week from Alonso, Neil? Because Steve is literally waxing lyrical about him. What would you?
I can't
polish my shoes, isn't he?
Alonso.
He's absolutely has. Yeah, he absolutely has. What would you say, Neil?
It was. I wasn't expecting it. It was from nowhere, but it's always good to see. I didn't know if he would be able to do it again, considering the fact that he tried to get Indy. The Indy 500, and then he's done his world endurance things, and he's now come back, and he had a little bit of a shaky start, but moments of what he always used to have, and then he goes and throws that one in, and I love the radio where he's like, Ocon, basically make your car as wide as possible, because Perez was going to
like a lion.
Because that's what he did to help Ocon out.
Yeah.
And Ocon tried, but the DRS was a bit too strong, wasn't it?
Yeah. I can't voice my love for Fernando Alonso enough.
No, you literally can't, can you? Okay.
Maybe.
Another talking point we've got is Ferrari, number one driver. Is it in debate? You got Leclerc, who I know is a good driver, but is Carlos Sainz taking a claim? Please say it is Carlos Sainz. Please say I've got that right.
It is.
It's right.
Fucking get in. Look, we're taking all season, but I'm learning. So I'll be ever thinking down there for dancing. Carlos Sainz, is he staking
He's a
claim?
junior as well.
He is, yeah.
Is he staking a claim to be number one?
I don't think so, to be honest. No, I think Leclerc is still the number one in that team. They made that quite clear with the commitment they've shown to him and the support they've given him. He did 1 year at Sauber, Alfa Romeo, and then went to Ferrari and pushed Vettel out, basically. No, I think Leclerc has been oddly inconsistent this year. I think Silverstone was his best drive, which he may well have won had he not had an engine issue. And I was just seeing him get overtaken by Lewis was heartbreaking. Sainz is very, very good. I don't think Sainz is quite on Leclerc's level. I don't know if you agree with me, Neil, but I think Leclerc is still a couple of steps up.
I'm struggling to have anyone to compare to, but Leclerc seems to have that Ricciardo factor where they can, on their day, they can do it, and they just have that step beyond, which I think he has slightly over Sainz. But Sainz just seems more consistent. And at the end of the day, even though we all love to see, as we are with Hamilton and what he can, bring out, it's more the fact that, is that always going to win you a title? No. The consistent, just bringing the points home can do it. I know, because it's more this tail end of the season that Leclerc's struggling. He was bringing all the points in, wasn't he, while Sainz was getting up to speed. But they're getting quite close now, aren't they?
They're very close in the championship.
And just, Sainz, for me, is edging it for how he's just looking the better driver out of the two, especially this weekend. Leclerc just looked nowhere. And from a man that you're thinking he's got some flair to him and he can really shine, and he done absolutely nothing. And he even went on to the radio and said on the quicker tyre as well that I don't know where I'm going to get any of this speed from.
Would you
Is he
say
like half
Neil,
a second behind? And he's like, I don't know, I'm never getting that.
would you say from the two drivers that there are shenanigans to come?
No, they seem pretty chilled as a pairing. I don't see anything like that happening.
Don't seem like anything like what?
That word. I'm not
That
saying
word,
it again.
Neil's word of the week, shenanigans.
You've said it more than me now, Martin.
I like this little feature though. Neil's word of the week. Let him say a word. You let him get warmed up, Steve, and then you hear a word like 8 times, like Neil's word of the week. By the way, before we close the show, are you on tour this week, Neil, or is that the comfort of your own home?
It is not the comfort of my own home.
Boo, boo. But at least you're not wearing the high-vis jacket this week. Ben Moore, hi lads, hope all is well. I don't think Ferrari really have a number one driver, but I've had to choose. It's Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, I agree. He's still the number one. Yeah.
It's the most even we've ever seen Ferrari be, unless Carlos is doing more with the second-hand resources than any other driver has.
I think this is probably the most equal Ferrari since the days of Massa and Raikkonen, sort of 07, 08, 09 maybe. Because since then it's been Alonso, Massa, definitely Alonso's team, and then Alonso, Raikkonen, Alonso's team, and then Vettel, Raikkonen, Vettel's team. Yeah, this is, and it is brilliant because Ferrari have always had that clear-cut number one, and now it's sort of like, well, who do you choose? Because Leclerc, like you said, Neil, Leclerc is brilliant, but he has been quite inconsistent this year. And you have those weekends where you think that's what he can do. Do this every weekend, and the next weekend he'll be nowhere again. And Carlos is just sort of getting no media time, just pootling around, getting in the points. So next year could be really interesting with them.
Gov, your mission is to get each contributor on TT to use Neil's word of the week in the 8:30 show. All right, I'll do my best. We will try and get Mark and Mike to say the word shenanigans a couple of times. I like that. Good little challenge. Thank you, Matt. Alpine, before we close, Steve, what's been going on with them this weekend?
Well, that fight for fifth with AlphaTauri has swung a little more towards the French team's way. AlphaTauri scored. Didn't they score nothing? I don't think they scored a point. Well, Gasly might have got 1 or 2, but didn't really go. Considering he started on the front row as well, heartbreak for Pierre. And
yeah, he just went further and further backwards, and
just went nowhere.
Their tyres seemed to go off a lot quicker than everyone else's.
And yeah, Alpine third and fifth with Alonso and Ocon. Alonso, I've not mentioned. Ocon, brilliant drive from him. Some great defending. It's trickier, obviously, on old tyres with DRS, which is just insanely easy to pass on that straight. But he did very, very well. I mean, to be fair, the car looked quick all weekend because Alonso was fifth in quali, which on its own is incredible. Then obviously got moved up to third with the penalties for Bottas and Verstappen. But yeah, I think if Alpine can keep this up, then fifth place is theirs because they're about 25, I think, points clear now.
Wow.
So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're about that many points clear.
Do we have a section, Martin, to talk about what we think with the Mercedes rear wing?
You certainly can. Yes. Obviously, I sent a video through on WhatsApp. Start of the weekend, that was actually, wasn't it? With Red Bull making the complaint for the small TED. But yeah, talk us through it, Neil. Far away, my man. The floor is yours.
Well, I had to do a little bit of finding out myself, and yeah, there's just some scratches, isn't there, on the side?
Well, they claim
the end fence of the and the fact that under high speeds, the force of the air pushing over the wing straightens it out basically, and yeah, that's not supposed to be the case. And Red Bull pleading for some new tests to happen, in which I think they're actually going to change the way they test the wing.
Ooh, interesting.
And
surely at this point, though, the season, they can just claim wear and tear, can't they? Surely that there's going to be small...
Nah, there's new parts pretty much every other week. So
right.
The main sort of the monocoque of the car will stay the same, But yeah, that'll be a different rear wing in Saudi Arabia, a different front wing, the whole lot.
You have different downforces for different speed tracks, so you'll have a different setup and depend on which way you want to go with it.
Okay, so what's going to happen here then? So Red Bull are taking it to the stewards.
Yeah, it's almost as if how teams did about the whole Ferrari engine thing. And
is this just more mind games? Is this just more off-track warfare?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Red Bull trying to find.
Love it.
They can see it getting pulled out of their grasp, and they're doing everything they can to try and stop Mercedes. This run they're finding themselves in.
Red Bull are panicking now. They are panicking.
Well, I think they got found out for their rear wing that would lean from the main seat, wasn't it? That attached to the chassis. That they had a design so the whole rear wing would bend in a way on the straights, so it'd make them quicker, and that obviously got seen on the cameras, whereas this is harder to see on the cameras.
I just think it's absolutely amazing because the technology that goes into Formula One and the rule books are so strict, and then they will always. Adrian Newey is the designer of the Red Bull car, is insanely good at finding these little details. He'll find a loophole somewhere and he will come up with this design that absolutely blows my mind. Like when they had they've got the rear wing this year. They've had things in the past, on the older sort of the championship winning Red Bulls. And it's incredible how they can just all come up with these tiny little things that make tenths of a second, which can make a championship. It's amazing.
Was it the Coanda effect or something that they kept moving the exhausts around, didn't they? Because they wanted to stop this whole where pretty much using the exhaust gases to help the diffuser work better. And that they moved them left, right, and centre to try and stop them from doing it. And they just found a new way to get the exhaust gases to stick and to work the diffuser harder.
It's amazing. It's so clever.
Matt Stanner, the best thing was Seb's comment on the fine Verstappen got. If you've not watched that video, it's so funny. There we go. Go and check that out.
Oh, that was
I haven't seen that.
of a week, wasn't it?
That was the other. Yes, I think it was.
On about having a drink on him, basically, and a meal. It was actually a little bit. It is funny, but I think Max overstepped the mark a little bit.
Do you?
Yeah, especially after Horner getting in trouble this weekend with blaming the marshal and then basically saying it was all with the double waved yellows. The FIA came out and said that the marshals did exactly what was required of them and can't fault them, in which, if I'm honest, they're always going to say because they're volunteers and the sport just doesn't work without them. So you've got to back them up. I think overall that the FIA should have, because they've got a light system anyway, that they should have taken control of what the scenario was going to be. So there's less emphasis on the marshals having to make their own mind up, in which is what happened. There were different marshals with different ideas. So there were single yellows. There was a green in between the two. And then where Gasly finally stopped, it was a double waved yellow in the end. And just too much inconsistency. But Horner overstepped the mark and was basically, whatever the regulation, 12 point, whatever it was. And
be nice to the marshals.
He had to apologise. He's actually signed up to do something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but
he signed up to something next year. And they arranged for the marshal to meet Max Verstappen as well, which is quite a nice little touch.
God, we could talk all night, but we have got to pull the checkered flag out and wave the race over. I've probably bungled that ending as well, but there we go. Good. All right, I'm getting there. I'm learning. I am learning. I wrote down a great idea for this for the off season. We could do a deep dive on each team, like Ferrari. We could look at both drivers, what they're going to do next season, what their expectations were. Because I still remember that when we spoke about last summer coming in, they all wanted to go out, all out. The year before wasn't a great season, so I thought that'd be quite interesting. So if you are a fan of that idea, do let us know, Steve, Neil, and the chat. That would be really appreciative. But where are we next week, Steve?
We've got a week's break now, so
well,
just under
the
2 weeks'
F1
time.
have, but we
Well,
haven't. We'll be
yeah,
here.
But F1 next heads to Saudi Arabia for the first ever Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, 3rd to the 5th of December.
So
And it's weird because F1 goes into December. Strange.
I love it. 29th is next Monday. We'll be here. What time can the people expect the F1 race on the HDI network to kick off?
It'll
20
be
past
7.
7.
Or 20 past 7 whenever Neil turns up.
7:15 for the front of the grid. 7:20 for the Mazepin.
That's pit lane
it
start.
all.
Pit lane start.
It's just trying to make
Absolutely.
the front runners have cold tyres and cold brakes.
Yeah.
It is. We were halfway through planning next season by the time Neil turned up today.
That's it.
But we're done. We're dusted. Steve, lead us out, and I'll press that button that says end broadcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your comments. Absolutely love it. Love to see you getting all involved as well. Couldn't do it without you. So we'll see you 7:15 or maybe 20 past 7 on Monday 29th. See you there.
I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you.